The first lessons learned is on the topic on digitalization in the agri-food value chain. What are the common messages we as partners have learned here? Well, we have learned that the agri-food sector is at a much lower level of digitalization when we compare to other manufacturing processing sectors, and especially for SMEs. We know that agri-food sector is an SME dominated sector. So we've seen that when it comes to digitalization, we are still lower than average compared to other sectors. Second point we have seen is that very little solutions are off the shelf, meaning that they fit 100% of the needs of the food of the agri-food company. This means that we cannot do digitalization in the same way as for other sectors. We come up with a solution and immediately can be adopted. No, the agri-food sector is specific in the conditions that apply in every company, in the processes, the environment where specific sensors or technology need to be used. And the third main lesson we have learned is that speaking about the agri-food sector, in fact, we see a big division between the primary production, what we can call agriculture, and the food processing or food technology related topics. There is no digital solution provider that can provide a solution amongst the entire value chain, which means we always need this customized, tailor-made solutions for specific parts in the value chain, being on agriculture or on food processing. Those are three main lessons. So what are the key messages we want to bring forward with the three of us, with the three projects? Well, if we go for next programmation period, and then we're speaking about towards the policymakers, have a specific separate focus on the agri sector and the food processing sector. We see a lot of initiatives in dealing with agri-food, and if we have a closer look on those, always we see a specific focus or on the primary production, on the production, growing process, or at the food processing process. So our key message recommendation is have a specific focus on both parts of this agri-food value chain. We would like as well to see, well, you've seen our results. We would like to promote our results, and we would like to see that what we have created in the project will be used further in the next steps. In next programs, we would like to see a requirement that results that already existing are used to build further on. And then classic, if you want to have SMEs involved, you should have direct SME support to develop specific case studies, tailor-made solutions to show how to adapt, test, and improve the technologies to the companies. If we want to work and to have direct SME support, and we want to have impact there at companies, you need to have this direct support. So those are, when it comes to the digitalization in the agri-food value chain, the lessons learned and the recommendations.
Thanks. So I go ahead with the second lessons learned and typology, or talking about support to SMEs. It's one of the priority for at least 2 from 3 projects here. It's to address action to SMEs. So what we learned during this those projects, it's to get positive impact. The COSME give a positive impact to bring and provide information and inspiration to SMEs. That's a reality, and that was very important. But then when we talk about involvement of SMEs, it starts to be harder to involve them without any quite attractive action before making them travel or be part of one specific activity. They need a concrete business opportunity and ready to use and very easy to understand. SMEs expect financial support for investment. There is in this call investment phase, and it's something that we share the 3 projects saying, okay, it was quite important but quite hard to measures and to promote investment with such projects. And time and resources of SMEs are limited. And that's true that they have to make some choices, and they are less attracted for cluster strategy development and building this kind of network. They want concrete action. And then for sure, when we talk about action and involvement of SMEs, before making the choice to dedicate to track DigiCluster consensus and dedicate times and resources, they have to be sure of the project, to be sure of the partners who are part of it, because maybe when you are in Spain to talk with a Lithuanian partner, it's not something obvious, and same when you are from Romania to France, you are more aware and attracted by your neighborhood and your vicinity. So it's something that to build this trust zone, it's very important. And then it was very important as priority to address tailored made activities. So according the needs of each one to have a response adapted. So once we go to the main messages, key messages that we would like to share with you today, it's first trying to facilitate the linkages between and the interaction between different scheme of interclustering projects, such as COSME with InnoSup. We see it, the perfect example, it's maybe CONNSENSYS with S3Food, where where they have this interaction well connected in the same timeline, where CONNSENSYS provide information, identify, prepare all the canvas of activity and how the cluster will work together, and the InnoSup brings the investment phase and the involvement of SMEs easier and with a longer period. And the same, it could happen from a COSME with some guaranteed fundings at regional level, for example, or if we could offer this kind of concrete investment or concrete opportunity to the SMEs, it will help to have more involvement of SMEs. Then we experience as also that SMEs are quite interested and attracted when it's learning by seeing activities or demonstrating some ICT solution ready to use, something that could be adapted and applied directly and tested by the end users, the industry, the growers, the consumer. And of course, when we say the length of this kind of project, they need long-term vision, how we could follow up and mobilize SMEs for months and years. And that maybe could be something also to think about to help us to involve them. And about KPIs, of course, we all have some ambitious KPIs. We try to reach them all, and we succeed for all of us. But it's hard to guarantee effective SME support and toward investment phase. It's maybe the KPI, they're harder to measure through a COSME project. And as for cluster, maybe create communities. That's very important, where SMEs could find peers or people working in the same industry with the same languages, and where you can spread the words and engage SMEs when we are creating a stronger community among this. So that's basically the key messages when we talk about the support toward SMEs and how to involve them.
Yes, thank you, Nicolas. And then we switch to the lessons learned. We learned from our projects when it comes to the collaboration with policymakers. We have seen that involvement with policymakers is not always as easy as it sounds, and that you need to find the attention of the policymaker on the right level to be on a field where you can interact with each other and you can exchange and actually work on the content. We've seen in the different regions that the clusters involved in the project have different relationship with their policymakers, their regional or their national policymakers. For some of the clusters, it was very easy to get involved with policymakers. Others experienced that it was hard or even impossible to reach their policymaking level. And then we saw as well, when you're working on a European project, some of the national or regional policymakers really think that Brussels is so far away. So we need to keep this in the back of our mind, of our head, when we collaborate together. We want to get in touch with policymakers. That we have still quite some big differences between the regions. What we've seen, and it's related to the first comment, is that getting access to the policymakers is quite a lot affected by the hierarchical structure of the policymakers in the regions. So meaning that if you want to reach the high-end policymaker, maybe it's easier to reach them via a middleman or another person who can introduce you, rather than trying to reach them by yourself straight away. Our key messages, and those are recommendations towards the policymakers and COSME at the one hand, at the other hand towards the clusters. What are our key messages and recommendations when it comes to collaboration with our policymakers? Well, first of all, what are our messages towards our policymakers and COSMEs? Clusters do have expertise and knowledge to implement and to have operational actions with SMEs. So please, policymakers, be aware of that and use this experience and knowledge. The clusters can be for you a vehicle to implement your strategies and your policies. According to the policy level you like to reach, we think that COSME could play a supporting role in involvement of policymakers. Sometimes it is beneficial for a regional cluster to have a message from COSME towards the regional policymakers, to address them, to tell them, look, this is happening in the region. Maybe you as a policymaker, you can get involved in this initiative. And then it would be good to give an explanation on how our project results and recommendations we make will be included in next work programs, in next steps to take. How will our results be used? How will you use the results of the project? Our recommendations and key messages towards the clusters are, if you are involved in a project, you want to get involved with policymakers, make sure you target the right policymaker and involve them from the beginning of the project, so they're really aware of what you're doing from the beginning. Define as well the right and concrete benefits for a policymaker to participate in your project. So if you need something to offer to a policymaker to say, look, if we want your collaboration and you will get this into return. And then promote your tools and methodologies you develop in your project and make them ready to use. Make them really hands-on here to go to your policymaker. Look, we have produced this. You can use this for this and this and this. So make sure that your results are ready to use. And then we come to our last lessons and key messages. They will be presented by Christine.
Yes, we also learned some lessons about this kind of ESCP-S3 project, because there hasn't been these kind of projects before, and our consortium partners think that this was efficient way how clusters could work together, how they can create partnerships and make this cooperation between each other. We have also agreed that firstly there should be a created roadmap, set priorities, how we will gonna work with SMEs or in our and also with ourselves during the project and afterwards. For some of the partners, the project duration was a little bit too short to achieve all expected results. And for example, also disseminate some project information. So we have promised a lot, but sometimes when we start to implement, anything could happen, and there could be changes. But partners were eager to achieve all the KPIs set up. Of course, it took also some extra hours from cluster's side to work and to achieve all promised results. Also to prepare and also to work with the more administrative work during the project lifetime to make all the deliverables as expected in the project and in the planned deadlines. Also, we identified that there was we had to work in different directions or in different focus areas, like between SMEs and also in our strategic level. And it was sometimes hard to combine with our resources and our working hours. So and also, as previously we have also mentioned about direct support to SMEs and how to measure it in this kind of project when direct support isn't available, but we still need to measure somehow impact on SMEs. And our main recommendations and key messages for this kind of project setup, we also identified two directions towards COSME and authors of call proposals, and towards clusters. We are suggesting to EASME play higher role to ensure these kind of interactions between partnerships, between projects, maybe more often, as we have done this before in or during the project lifetime. Also, probably should balance priorities and the expected results and the expected impacts from the project implementation and providing results. Like while we are spending time on deliverables, we could those are also important, but we could somehow more communicate with our members and to know their challenges and the ideas that they want to work with. So also we previously in the previous slides we mentioned about this direct support for SMEs. We think that this kind of project is more focused for support for clusters, and some activities are more focused for SMEs in INOSOC project, but there might be also extension of these kind of ESCPS3 project activities for SMEs. And for the clusters, we are suggesting to evaluate if this call is aligned with your objectives and your priorities. And just to think how you can implement this together with your daily activities, and also evaluate your KPIs and ambitious. So be ambitious, but be real. And yes, these are our main suggestions for clusters.